with the panel, we have John Ouseph from FirstBuild, which is a GE joint venture around crowdsourced design and small batch manufacturing of home appliances. It's very excited to have John here. We have Jay Rogers from Local Motors, crowdsourced design, small batch manufacturing of things that roll, right? Cars, motorcycles, and various toys that Alex tends to buy and take home with them, EV Verados and what have you. And Alex, and apparently this is Alex's official bio photo, because if you had to be a character. So, so you just Google Alex and you go to AT&T and this is the picture you get. So Alex is a developer evangelist there at AT&T. He's the man. He does 30 Hackfest a year. He touches thousands of developers, and he's a huge friend and advocate for the Alliance. And just to let you see some of the innovation, some of the things that the members of this community are doing, I thought I might show you something here that, so you can see what Jay's been up to lately. So that's a 3D printed car. They'll be going on sale. I like to term it, they had a design contest. So it's designed in Italy and printed in Chicago. So with that, let's go ahead and welcome our panel up.
Thanks, Joe.
So really appreciate you all coming. Thought this would be a fun panel. You know, so the topic is makers and crowdsourcing, and I think you all have your fingers in that. You're part of that ecosystem. So Jay, you know, question for you is, you know, why cars, motorcycles, and things that roll?
We started by doing this as a way to reach technology adoption in vehicles. In 2007, I was a US Marine, and I was frustrated by the pace at which we actually found technology integrated into vehicles and the robustness of that technology. And so the idea of co-creation and the idea of micro-manufacturing was what we put together to do this just for vehicles. So from skateboards to satellites, that's where we feel like our place in the ecosystem can be. And we look for partners at all times because we think that so often people don't know how to make vehicles, and they know how to make technology that could be useful, and then too often the current automotive producers don't know how to onboard that technology from outside the company in a rapid enough adoption cycle to be able to find it in the hands of consumers who can give them their best Genchi Genbutsu, their best learning, their best Kaizen. And so we built a new kind of automotive company that was able to take technology at 10 to 60 times faster. And it's very hard. It's almost, if you don't know what the problem is, then you don't know how to fix it. And the problem is that our automotive adoption cycle is a 5 to 7 year cycle, and that is the enemy of innovation. For those that are involved in microelectronics, who understand that the speed can move at the pace of anything that's smaller than a shoebox, the pace can move at 6 months changeover cycles. That is something we understand very well in our cell phones and other devices and in our chipsets, but we don't understand how to do that with vehicles. So that's why cars, that's why vehicles.
In the community that's developed around Local Motors, how many people are in that community? What's that community look like?
Our community right now is made up of 4 different groups. We have designers, industrial designers. We have engineers of every kind. Then we have fabricators, which are really the sort of technology do-it kind of folks, and then we have enthusiasts. And they sort of move up in that scale. They're about 1 designer for every 8 engineer, for every 30 fabricators, for every 400 enthusiasts. And we have about 130,000 people in our community right now across those whole, that group of 4. And for us, they're located in 130 countries. And I think the most important thing for us has been that it's not about development of vehicles in the United States. It's not about development of vehicles in developed countries. It's about being able to make new vehicle innovation available to people anywhere in the world. And so that's sort of where the community comes from and what its size is. And they're interested in low-hanging fruit all the way up to things like a flying car, or things like distributed vehicle production in developing countries where there is no infrastructure and they have to import fuel and import cars and import parts to fix those cars. And those are where our community, that's where they live. Mm-hmm. So it was an odd choice for us to start this company in the United States in some ways, but the community has drawn us out from day one to think about solutions everywhere.
Most of the people in this room, you know, we're used to the notion of if you say collaboration, open source, you know, probably everyone in this room would, the first thing they would think of is they probably think you're talking about software, right? So that's what we're used to, is collaborating on software. What's it like to do crowdsourcing and collaboration on physical things?
So I actually bemoan the word Internet of Things in many ways, because I actually think that it's an amalgam of 2 things that are very much the same, but we don't want to be confused. Things are things, and they don't necessarily have to be connected in order to be smarter, but in some cases they desperately need to be connected. And so we're very interested in the idea of open sourcing hardware for all of its good benefits. And we think that the patent system in developed countries stands in the way. We're very sharp about this. We think it stands in the way of development of hardware. The pace of development and the pace of filing patents keeps back people from learning on each other's ideas. So figuring out a way for people to be able to share and be remunerated for the work that they do is something that hardware has not solved. The Linux Foundation has done an exemplary job of bringing a kernel of developers together in order to be able to promote open source database management, open source operating systems, open source collaborations like the AllSeen Alliance. Hardware has lagged behind hugely. And so we are one of many, and we hope FirstBuild will be another, and we really feel that this is something that is a coming trend as the cost of tools has gone down, and as the cost of gaining an idea from somebody has gone down, and the ability to have legal protections that are growing for user-generated content. There's an opportunity for hardware to be able to find its way into the collaborative world.
Fantastic. So, John, you know, GE Appliances, they're a pretty successful company. Why FirstBuild?
Yeah, I mean, that's a question we get all the time. But now as it starts to evolve, the question really should be, what took you so long, right? I mean, if you think about the appliance business, right, it's razor thin margins, right? It's expensive. When we do a new product introduction, it's expensive. And there's a lot of risk involved, and it makes you be very conservative, right? It takes, I don't know, anywhere from, you know, a year to 2 years to get a feature out. And then when you do it, you know, in the manufacturing process, we're kind of set up to do quantities of 10,000, 20,000. So you're taking a big risk there too, right? And you do market research, people say, yes, I love the product, I'll pay an extra $50, but when it comes to market, maybe they don't, right? And now you have all this excess inventory that you're trying to juggle. So this is a great opportunity for us to, 1, be innovative, 2, get the community involved, 3, do things at a lower risk, right? Part of FirstBuild is, you know, the community. It's a platform to let, you know, makers, engineers, designers, consumers all get together and create a new product. And then we have the microfactory, right, that allows us to build, you know, 5 at a time if we need to. And that 5 we sell, right? And then depending on how that goes, we'll build 10 more, we'll build 100 more. So the microfactory allows us to be faster, right? We can iterate. The whole process of, you know, design, build, sell, that's iterative, right? And FirstBuild allows us to do that. And, you know, with GE Appliances, we can scale that up if it's a big success. So, you know, the question really should be, what took you so long? This is just a fantastic way to innovate, gain speed, reduce risk, and really figure out what the consumer really wants.
So why crowdsource the kitchen?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting concept too. And, I don't think as an appliance business anyone lacks for ideas, but it's really to connect to the consumer, right? So crowdsourcing the kitchen, you're getting connected to the consumer. The other thing it does is, we build, thousands of refrigerators. They're all the same. Thousands of dishwashers, they're all the same. But every consumer's need is different, right? This allows that difference to, find solutions for that difference, right? Whether I need something in my dishwasher, because I use, this type of, device. Depending on your family as it grows, right? You start off single, right? Your dishwasher, you use it a certain way. Then you have kids. They're young kids. They're babies. You want your dishwasher to, accept bottles, accept little bowls, accept little spoons. Then as the kids grow, right, your plates and change. Even your clothes. All that changes as you evolve. But the washer is there, and you just need features, right? You need features that either through software, through small devices that just help your life be easier, right? And that's what crowdsourcing is about. It's to get the community involved. What are their specific needs? What do they want to promote? What are they passionate about? And then we can help create that, right? And it's no longer just about ideas, right? We can actually physically work with you, build it, and sell it, right? And then everybody is a lot better for that.
So what are you doing to open up the GE appliances?
Yeah, like our first product out of FirstBuild is something called a green bean. It's a small module that interfaces with our control boards for all the appliances. And this allows, developers to do a lot of different things, right? If you want to, first is kind of the simple layer where you control your appliance either through a phone or your computer or Raspberry Pi, similar to what you have available on the interface of the appliance. You take advantage of the algorithms that are there. Maybe you do things with notification, easy kind of things that most people say, oh yeah, do that, right? And then what we've also enabled with this green bean is the ability to really get in there and design your own algorithms. We've opened up all the loads to all of our appliances. So if you're, I want the best pizza oven, you can create an algorithm that makes pizza exactly the way that you want to make it. So it's customized to what you're passionate about. In cooking, it's customized. You can do different things with your washer. These are the clothes that I have. This is the cycle that I really want to run. I'm not happy with the cycles that you've given me, even though we give you a lot of different cycles, right? There is a cycle that you may want to create yourself. So it's just a neat little device that interfaces with the control board and just opens it up to your ability to program and your imagination, right? That's what it's all about. And I think, it's a great first step for us, and we're going to continue to create devices that help consumers and help makers interface with our appliance, right? And that's what spurs innovation. So we're really excited about it.
Fantastic. So Alex, I noticed
Yes.
you've put a ton of money and resources into reaching out to developers, collaborating with them, running hackathons. Why is this so important to you?
Well, it's about creating community, right? And so when I first started at AT&T, outreach was very traditional, right? So it was spend a couple $100,000, get a couple developers from large corporations to come in and sit down and show them an SDK, and then yeah, that was the process, right? And through hackathons to me are really crowdsourcing knowledge, ideas, and bringing people together. And what it brings to AT&T, but also just the community as well, is the ability for people to come together, share ideas, and collaborate on knowledge, right? So let's say we wanted to build I don't know, let's build poker, right? How would we get two phones to talk to each other? And if we don't know, we ask the next guy, like, how do you get these two devices? Maybe he'll say PubNub, Pusher. Like, oh, what's that? Didn't know, like, what is PubNub? What is Pusher? Like, oh, it's a super fast way to get two devices via JavaScript to talk to each other. Oh, okay. Or, if you want to get hardware devices, then you use AllJoin, right? And it's this instantaneous sharing of knowledge at the events that drive a lot of value for all the participants, especially the sponsors, but really the participants, the developers, at the hackathons. And then out of this, you get the traditional people hire, like a lot of companies hire out of the hackathons, right? AT&T hires, content's generated, a lot of good press. Whenever any 10-year-old kid wins a hackathon, the press goes crazy over that, right? You get people that wear cat ears on TV, right? And then it's also really good for internal processes as well, right? So what I'm beginning to start to see now is, as I continue to push the internal API groups to vet, I'll say vet their documentation and getting started guides, right? So they'll say, hey, Alex, we want to be, test our new beta API at XYZ event. What do you need for documentation? I'm like, once you give me your first rev, and let's send it over to a couple test developers and see what they say, right? And inevitably, you send a 50-page getting started guide, that ain't gonna go over so well, right? So it's getting a third party within the community to then really inject more kind of interaction and paring down, simplifying the process, because it's the documentation's got to be as simple as possible. So a lot of good all around.
And I've noticed the the way you approach is not just collaboration at the events, but actually the whole process around how you figure out where should we be, what should we do, what are the events and things, the outreach that we should do in 2015. You actually crowdsource all of that whole process, which is really kind of amazing for a company like AT&T.
Yeah. I always get people are surprised I work for AT&T sometimes, but if you take a page from Zuckerberg's, like they always reference how on one of his tests he's like, why did he got the answers by asking people the questions, right? And it's the same way I approach. I mean, like actually that's even how I write a lot of my papers, right? Like you write a blog, like quick, what do you think? And you go down the line, 10 people later, your grammar's corrected, all your punctuation's pretty spot on, and maybe somebody even more creative has injected a couple better descriptors within your blog. You push that out, and that's all within a span of maybe 20 minutes tops. Very fast, very efficient, and everybody gets kudos for it as well.
So something I want to ask all of you, starting with Alex, why do makers matter?
Makers matter because it's A, it's community. B, it's something that people can they can get behind, right? Sometimes when we say like IoT, people don't always understand that, but like makers, the term maker people understand, and the audience kind of interprets it as the term maker as I can do myself, is what I find. So if I say we're having a maker hackathon, I'll have 5-year-old kids all the way to 55-year-old plus adults come out because they feel that they can participate and they can be part of the community. And they can, right? So we show them all the different pieces that go together to make some ears, or use an Arduino to control a light bulb, and they just go at it, right? So, yeah.
And John, how about for you?
I agree with Alex, right? A is community, right? That's just where everyone comes in, a lot of good ideas. Just because, I work for FirstBuild and I have these 4 walls doesn't mean that all the good ideas reside in the 4 walls, right? So good ideas come from everywhere, right? And once you have that community of people thinking who are enthusiastic about your product, this is the home, really, that we work in. You're enthusiastic about the home. What makes your life better? And then people add to that, and it's just so creative. It's just amazing what people know about appliances and what people can do with appliances, and that's just about the community, right? So that's number 1 reason.
Jay?
I think we saw this morning, Bill Joy, right next to here, had a very famous interview where he said, wherever you work, the smartest people in the world don't work for you, and that was in 1990, I think. And that was the harbinger of saying that we could all contribute, even if we don't work for a company, big or small. And then this word maker sprung up, and Tim O'Reilly and Dale Doherty had a lot to do with it by starting Maker Faire and Maker Media. And so to me, makers matter because it's your inner maker that matters. The word is now, as we've gone along, 24 years from the time that Bill Joy said that, it's where's your inner maker? You may be an engineer, you may be a manufacturer, you may be working for a company that does manufacturing, but what have you done to contribute to making something? And one of my mentors, Martin Mikos, who is in a private cloud business now, but ran MySQL for 9 years before it was sold to Sun and then on to Oracle, has said many times over that the makers of the world found their birth in the open source software movement. But tools were too expensive to really let them be a maker. And insurance was not developed enough to allow their making ideas to come to market and be in someone's hands. And user-generated content said, that's fine for software now, but not good for hardware. We need patents that still protect hardware because there's too much marginal cost in each individual unit. Makers are the people that are at the vanguard of making open hardware work. And it's each one of you in one way or another, whether it's wood or metal or an integrated circuit. And the truth of it for makers to me is that it's actually size differentiated. I've come to believe that a lot. If it is smaller than a shoebox, your making can be expressed more rapidly now because you can actually tinker with something and then send it overseas to be made wherever you live and then have it delivered back to you in a box. If you're a maker that makes things bigger than a shoebox, it's actually harder to get it done. It's heavier to lift the stuff. It's usually more likely to kill you if you get it wrong. And it's the kind of thing where it's more difficult to deliver in service to a consumer. So your inner maker is how much risk do you want to take and how much size do you want to build? And so, I think that John even undersold in some ways what FirstBuild could do for you, only insofar as Green Bean is just the beginning of what they're willing to do for you in terms of size. And the inner makers that are out there are going to define what products we as an ecosystem all make. Mm-hmm. And they will be manufacturers as much as they will be tinkerers.
So for all of you, and just feel free to jump in, what has the, so AllSeen Alliance, you've all become involved, you're collaborating with the Alliance, with other members, with each other. What's that been like? Why do you care? Why do you do it?
I think that I can say for sure the community has been fantastic. It's focused on open source and collaboration. Collaboration would be really the key word, where looking towards more programs. I mean, just in the discussions yesterday, we're looking at maybe turning on more developer targeted. Like what I'd love to be able to do is to sponsor the schools to have, I have marketing budget to be able to buy Arduinos, but our different types of devices to then provide, and then at the same time work with some community members to provide content that we can then give to the teachers, and then they can teach the classes with the sponsored hardware and content as well, right? And so just being here at the event has been fantastic. I have a potential new marketing program that we can launch in a couple of weeks, so it's been great.
Yeah, I think one of the advantages, right, what we want to do with appliances, like everything out of FirstBuild will be connected, but we also want to connect all these other devices, right? It makes it hard if I have to go and develop for each of these devices that I want to bring into the ecosystem. What this does, it makes it easy, it just gives speed, right? So the bottom line here is speed. Working with the AllSeen Alliance is going to allow us to connect all these other devices to our appliances, and then we can quickly get them connected. We can quickly have them interface with each other. So that's really the beauty. And it, like Alex said, it's easy, right? It's just making everything so much easier to get connected, and that's really the key, right? Not everyone wants appliances that are connected, but everyone wants the connected home. So appliances as a part of a broader ecosystem makes a lot of sense.
I I agree completely with what was said. On the micro level, the people that you meet very quickly are, face-to-face, touch, taste, smell, the stuff that you can't do over the internet. When you get together, it's a magical thing to be able to talk about what you're doing each and how you can share. That's very valuable. I think the other thing is that crowdsourcing is a tough word because it says you give and I take. And I source from the crowd. Co-creation is probably a better word for what's going on at the AllSeen Alliance, because what it is I give, you give, we learn, we do together. We both take from each other and we both give to each other. And I think, to me, that organization is an elevated form of development, whereas if it's just sourcing a bunch of ideas and bringing them in, that is not as valuable. So we joined the AllSeen Alliance because it's easier to have co-creation go on than not, and to be able to talk to people who are at the next level, somewhere between what we've thought of as the hobbyist and somewhere below the IEEE standards and documentation level, where many of you may be in both of those areas together, but together in the AllSeen Alliance, we can talk about things that are maybe outside of our comfort zone. So if I'm a mechanical engineer and I want to work on something that's in chemical engineering that has something to do with a connected device, maybe we can get outside of our comfort zone and do something that is different. And so to us, it was very worthwhile to join a group of people that were willing to think about a connected world across disciplines that were different than what we knew, and co-create together.
I have to say that that's awesome. It's co-creation definitely is the right word to use. I'll stop using crowdsourcing, but it's
somebody taught it to me, and so I use it a lot. I mean,
that's fantastic. Because even from the
Hot mic.
hot mics.
Yeah. From the AT&T side, one of the things I always have to be cautious of is the legalities around, even it was heck to get legal to sign off on hackathons, and to get them to agree to a short legal document, right, that the participants agree to. And I always stray away from whenever discussions, surrounding, are we going to get their IP, or like how do we get access to the software? I'm like, you need to talk to the developer about that. This event is more about co-creation. It's about community coming together, and that's what the community is all about. And so, working together is a critical aspect of co-creation.
And I've seen all of you have done a lot of collaboration, even within this community. It's Jay, you've believed in this enough that you've actually built a car with AT&T and with our member Chris Matthew and his team at OctoBlue. It's the AllSeen Alliance show car, and you've brought it to events and made it available and let people hack on it from the show floor. I was really touched by that.
It's just the beginning, and I think that this is a small ecosystem of hardware developers and connected devices that is growing rapidly, and it's all of our jobs to show people what can happen. And the tyranny of the large-scale, long development hardware OEM, it's not any individual person, I think, that sits back. The first iteration that I had sort of thinking about what does it mean to build a big, complex cyber-mechanical device, and the first thing you hear is it's hard. Well, yeah, it's hard. But the other thing is that if we could imagine how to let more people in, then it may not be as hard as we think it is. And so I think that bringing a car and doing little things on the car to be able to let people's mind wander. Mm-hmm. I'm always amazed by when we say Internet of Things about any device. It's really the limitation on the Internet of Things is how many ideas you can think about what to do with that thing. We could all solve many problems if you could just tell us what you want to do. And so I think that it is a sine qua non. If we want to develop a car, we got to get it in front of people so they could say, you know what, I would like it to do the following things.
Any thoughts before we open it up for some questions from the audience?
I just want to add one thing. I mean, I really didn't give Jay a lot of props. FirstBuild is really, our big partner is Jay and Local Motors. Those guys have been great mentors to us. I mean, I'm glad that Jay is part of the AllSeen Alliance, right? His team is just fantastic, right? They're very open. They're they're great mentors and great teachers. So, publicly, I wanted to thank you guys. You've done
Thanks,
a great
John.
job.
I mean, I think it goes without saying, it cannot go without saying that we, in starting to do cars, Local Motors is only focused on vehicles. That's all we do. And IBM, Lou Gerstner was famous for making the statement that elephants can dance. And I've said this before, embarrassingly, to Beth Comstock at GE, because she doesn't want to be called an elephant. Nobody does. And people are not companies. People are people. Companies are companies. But what I would say is that what's amazing about this open hardware movement is that elephants can dance. And it is amazing for me to see the difference between big companies that realize that this is the soul of their future and other ones that say, I'll take a pass on that. And GE not only said this is the soul of their future, they challenged us to say, now make it relevant to a large manufacturer. And I said, I don't know that I can do that we as a team, there are 100 people, Allegra leads our Internet of Things programs out there, and I think that, to me, I was very challenged, and in working with GE and seeing how GE does appliance product development and then how they take something to 200,000 to 1 million units a year, that is real scale, and it is real challenge associated with supplier development and cost. There is a more perfect way to do it, and there's a more perfect way to do it, and we've learned how to make that happen. So, and I couldn't have learned it without the team at GE Appliances, more than just GE, because we realized where the brittleness was together around the product development process, and where the power was around going to scale. And some of them are pretty obvious learnings. And we just were unprepared at Local Motors to think about 1 million units a year and the relevancy of co-creation to get there. But when you actually engage in that conversation, it becomes incredible to think about how you can make products better. And what an amazing thing to have that come out of the United States. I think, I am a patriot. I was a Marine for 7 years, but our community is passportless. They exist all over the world. But this innovation of how to take a product development rapidly and move it into hardware scale at size, it defies what can be done in Shenzhen. And it is amazing to see GE be at the forefront of that, despite all the people who might think that they can't be. So you can thank me publicly, but his boss, I guess, as far as it comes in, couldn't be with us here today because he's at a national lab right now working on a bunch of things to try to make this move forward faster. And I can't thank all of you enough for making that happen.
Fantastic. So, thought we'd open it up. Any questions from the audience? Yes?
Elon Musk.
Is that a question?
Well,
So,
how do you see yourself fitting in or not fitting in?
7 years ago, I sat down at a table with a man named Elon Musk. And his founder of the company that he invested in, Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning and Bernie Say, had brought him on as an investor. And they started and invented a company called Tesla. And Elon came in, and the first thing he said to me when I was talking about asking them to open up their interface with their electric drive, which was at the time a very nascent version of the induction motor and battery system that they've built, he said, MBAs aren't worth a shit. No engineer will ever work with another one in an open development platform. That'll never work. And so I think your idea is dumb. And then today, he has now open sourced a part of the hardware system that he has, though it's not quite open source. It's if you want to use it, we won't sue you, and you can come and talk to us about it. And he's asked for the Hyperloop train to involve co-creation and development, and will other people pick up where he and other members of his team have come on. So I think that Elon has learned a lot over the last 7 years, but I don't know that I think that Tesla, as a company that he now runs, is something that embraces that philosophy. They will do it on some of the electronics end, but in the hardware end, I don't see it as being a collaborative development platform. And so I think Steve Jobs, I think Elon Musk, I think that sort of entrepreneurs that have been very successful, especially in hardware, people like Fred Smith at FedEx. I think that these people are amazing, and I think that Elon is amazing for what he's done. But there are many different ways to be amazing, and so I don't think it's a sort of A or B. And so when it's sort of say how to fit with the world of Elon Musk, I don't think everybody has to fit with that. And so I think that my belief is that open hardware development will crush the current development paradigm of doing things hidebound, because it's everyone together organized to get better ideas out faster. And the vestiges of the sort of Steve Jobsian way of doing things, very, very totalitarian, top down, will work, but it is a hard road and you have to organize it very, very carefully. And so I wish there was more sharing in hardware. I wish that we in India and China and in Tesla did not repeat the Henry Ford model of saying, I'll spend $1 billion, much of taxpayer money, and then I will make one car every 4 to 6 years. I think that that is too slow. And if you really look at it in a very unbiased way, is not a successful way of bringing technology to market faster. Of course, he has IPO'd his company and is worth an incredibly large amount of money on paper. And a lot of us who want to build businesses that would do things differently have to still prove that. So great kudos to Elon Musk and the founders of Tesla for getting that business up, and to SpaceX. And the future will show how well we can co-create and make things happen faster.
Another question from the audience? Yes, Tanaya.
I definitely in the business of teaching makers myself, and I do say a lot of what I teach is failure. So I'd love to hear what you guys have to comment about that, because a lot of the parents I work with, they're like, we work for 2 hours on this Arduino project, and they've nothing to show for it. Oh, yeah, that's great failure, and they don't see that as a plus. So failure.
Yeah, hackathons are a collection of a lot of failures, right? I mean, like half the projects don't either don't make it to the finish line, or they don't make it beyond the 24, 40-hour event. Failure is paramount to learning. You have to fail to learn. If you don't fail, you don't really learn, right? And so it's in the process of trying again repeatedly that you end up learning what you need to do, what works, what doesn't work, and moving forward. I mean, like just to make this point probably more relevant for hackathons, we've tried deploying electronic check-in systems, apps. None of this stuff works. You get on a mic, you stand up, you tell people what to do, where to go. Human factor works the best at an event. We've had to learn that over 80 plus events. But it's through trial and error that you end up learning, and you pass on also, you tell other people and sharing as well, sharing your failures is critical as well. So telling other people what to avoid, and then they'll probably have to go burn their finger on the stove anyhow, but at least you've passed on your knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk hours, because my wife's a teacher, and we have this debate all the time, right? How are schools set up? Schools are set up to make sure that you get it right? And it's not about the process, right? That's really what Makers is about. I have my son's in first grade, right? And make sure you get 100, right? That's what we tell him. But in reality, what I like about Makers, it's about failure, it's about learning, and then that's where you learn critical thinking, right? So I think that's really the crust of it all, right? And then, even in college, right, we produce papers about our failures, right? And then some other university, some other group would take that learning and then, move it forward. So failure is important, even FirstBuild, right? The cycle that we talk about, right? It's design, make, sell, but all of that's about learning. All of that is what worked, what didn't work. Let's go back to the drawing board and create something new. So it's fundamental to making.
So John, so at FirstBuild, have you had any notable failures, anything blow up in the lab that you learned from?
Yeah, I mean, all kinds of things that we try and it just doesn't work, right? So we're doing this thing right now with FirstBuild. It's about it's about a garbage disposal. It doesn't sound glamorous, but there are a lot of neat things you can do with garbage disposals that people just haven't thought of, right? And it's one where you press a button, you don't have to go underneath, turn on the faucet, right? It injects water by itself, but first time we did it, it didn't work, right? Somehow we got it to jam up and, tripped a breaker and things like that, right? So failure is important, and then we learned from that mistake, and now we have one that we're about to go to market with, right? So, yeah, all kinds of failures.
I'd like to add, that is like the best question I've heard in I don't know how long for a panel, and the reason why is it really teases out what we're about. We smile and we talk about burning our finger on the stove. Put yourself in a 787 Dreamliner when the cabin fills with smoke when you're in the air at 30,000 feet. That's failure. And that is really meaningful failure. Put yourself in a situation where you're in an autonomous car and you're driving down the road and suddenly it loses its connection or its ability to be able to discern the environment around it because of something that nobody anticipated. That's failure, and failure which could mean you never see your loved ones again. I'll give one other example. Put yourself in an MRAP in Kaust Bowl in Afghanistan and you realize that you're in a 17.5-ton machine that just got a flat tire. Or the axle broke, and now you're in a pillbox, and all 17.5 tons isn't enough to protect you against the weapons that were bought by somebody on the black market, and you're toast. And so you have to dismount, and now how good are you at what you want to do? That's failure. And when you have an industrial complex where you as a technician were not trained how to fix that axle, that you have to call in a contractor from Oshkosh and they have to get brought out in another MRAP to be able to come out and fix the axle just to get it off the battlefield, and they weren't trained to use a weapon. And so I think those kinds of failures are the other ones that we have to keep in mind. I love Exponent as a company. They're a failure mode and effects analysis business, and they've been called in to deal with massive bridge failures, massive battery failures, the 787 Dreamliner. These are all solvable failures if we start with the school question of, it's not about getting 100. It's about learning how to interact in the face of failure and get it right and learn what's the best mode of communication and the best way to solve it. And if we can teach our children how to do that, then that will be an education for a lifetime, because maybe they'll solve it on the plane and say, shut down that power assist device and we'll get the smoke out of the cabin and we'll do it. Maybe they'll solve it right then, or maybe they'll solve it much further upstream so that it never happens. And I think the most beautiful devices are the ones that work quietly and flawlessly because of failures that happened long before we put people in harm's way. But I had to make a decision at Local Motors 7 years ago when we started the business. When people asked me, what are you going to do about regulation? You're going to kill people. And it was a very serious question, because I said, well, what if we don't? What if we don't do this? Then we're just going to kill people anyway, and we'll never know. Think how many people die in cars all over the world today because of pedals that never got pressed, but suddenly the car accelerates. Because of airbags that go off because of calcification in the propellant, and then end up creating a bomb instead of creating something that's an air expansion device. These are failures, and they're failures that we've masked, but they could come out a lot faster if we ride the lightning with our kids, if we teach them that it's okay to get an F, if you try, and if you understand what happens and you control that environment. I talked about co-creation. Co-creation is about setting up the experiment to get you as close to the bleeding edge of risk as you can so that you can actually fail. And that's really what's important, I think.
Yeah. That's actually another beauty of the community as well, this community as well, right? We can collaborate on projects outside of work where you may not always be able to fail, and you can test things out, give it a try, and we jointly work on projects. And if it does fail, it doesn't matter. Nobody knows about it. And then you can the wins that you do have, you bring back to the organization, and then it lives on.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I want to thank our illustrious panel for taking the time. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks.